Hi, Russ Crowley here, and in this video I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on the article I wrote the other night, or the post I put the other night about reorganizing pages within a Microsoft Word document. And the quick reason is you can't. There's no such thing as a page. Now, I know Word shows us what we think is a page, but, without getting, again, too out of here and losing everybody, there's no such thing as a page in Word. And what it's just shown, of course, is a representation. Now, this is the kind of view that actually Word likes to use. Now, this is I'm viewing this in draft mode, and I've got the styles bar down the corner here. You can turn this kind of on and off in options and in advanced. And then if I just come down here we go. Here I can show style area pane in draft 2.01 centimeters. If I just make that 0.1, then you can get rid of it like that, okay? So, but you can still see the bar down the side, but it's a really, really handy tool to have. But this is basically what Word treats as a page. It's like a long web page or a kitchen roll, which you can just unravel and unravel and just keep going and going and going. And the only thing which actually Word uses to determine how it's going to display what we would term as a page is with these things here. If I click on layout, then I have page setup. So I have my margins, my orientation, and my size. At the moment, I've got no clue what either of those are, or any of those are. There's only when I click on the drop-down arrow there that I can see that it's actually formatted for A4, and it's portrait, and the margins are 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters all around. But at the moment, I've got no clue. I mean, obviously I know because it's my, it's my setup and it's my printer. But this is essentially the way Word works. So with that in mind, how actually does Word work? How does it know what to display? Well, it's these things here, which if you've been aware of my Word stuff over the last few years, you'll know how much I advocate the use of these things called styles. Now, styles are everything in Word. I can't emphasize how much you have to learn about these, okay? You cannot achieve any decent results in Word until you learn styles. Now, they're not overly complicated. There's a lot of depth to them, but they are really, really easy to learn, okay? I've even got courses on them as well. And if you want to dig deeper, just get in touch, let me know or whatever, okay? But there's loads of free stuff out there, and lots of my free stuff, is talking about styles as well. So the information's out there, but again, just to emphasize, they're the most important thing in Word. Now I'm going to change my page view. If I click on View, then I can come up here in the top left. I've got Read Mode, I've got Print Layout, Web Layout, Outline, and Draft. Now the one that I use all the time, and probably most people do as well, is the print layout. And this is where we get our page from, because this is the closest thing to WYSIWYG, that what you see is what you get, that we're going to get when we're using Microsoft Word. Now, this is where we get the page idea from. But let's say, for example, I zoom in here on what is actually page 3 in my document, or if that's Arabic numerals, page 3 here. But it's actually not page 3 in my document. If I look down in the bottom left, it's actually page 5, because I've got a front cover and I've got a little bit of the front matter there with a table of contents, figures, and tables. So this is again why the pages in Word again is a little bit kind of screwy, because again it's just this representation, okay? And I don't want to dig too much into it because I covered a lot of it in the post as well. But essentially, what you're doing in Word when you're trying to move pages is you're essentially moving what's on the page, okay? So it's the contents of the document what you're moving. You're not actually moving the pages, are you? Again, this is just semantics, yeah, I know, but this is where styles come into their own. And again, as I covered in the article, by using styles, they give us this kind of hierarchical navigation. Now, Word has 9 levels of heading. Now, I'm not going to go down to 9 levels in this document because it doesn't warrant. I think that the lowest that I go is down to 3 levels. And if your document goes down to 9 levels, some do. I've done a couple of like Department of Defense documents where we've gone down to 9 levels, but the documents are getting very, very complicated. But there's a reason why we use levels, because documentation is hierarchical. You have your title, then you have your subtitle, then you have your main headings, your subheadings, your sub-subheadings, and so on and so forth. And the way Word uses this is it links these levels to styles, or it links the styles to the levels. And then when I turn on something like the navigation pane, if you can't see the nav pane, click on View and then Navigation pane. This then gives me this loose hierarchy, which is really, really powerful. When I come through to something like the original RTF file, and I look at the navigation pane, I don't have anything because there is no structure. I can see when I scroll through that this particular heading here is, if I look up on the ribbon here, I've got Times New Roman 16, it's bold, it's underlined. That tells me that it's a heading. But in terms of actually using the functionality of Word to help us, it's not doing anything. But unfortunately, a lot of people actually use Word like this, where you'll select the text and then you'll increase the font size like that, and you'll make it bold, and you'll make it underlined, then you'll do fonts, then you'll change the case like so. And that's how a lot of people use Word, and that's where the problems are, because you're not using the styles properly, okay? But when you do use the styles properly, they give us this hierarchy here. Now, you can't see what levels these are here, but I'm pretty sure you can have a guess that when they're butted up to the left, then they're going to be level 1. And then the first indented one there is going to be level 2. If I click on the home ribbon here, I can see if I click in Introduction, I have heading 1. If I put on heading 2, onto this one here, then I'm on heading 2. And then if I come down to, is there a heading 3 in this document? It doesn't actually look like it. But let's say I want to make this heading 2 into a heading 3, like that. It's right down the bottom here. Now you can see we're getting hierarchical, and then I can make it heading 4 and heading 5, but that's not actually formatted as such for this document. But this is what we can do. And now with our actual navigation pane, again, like I say, we're talking about ranges. Now here I have, if I click on Introduction, I see up here in the style ribbon that this is a heading 1. Now, I can't do much from the style ribbon here in terms of selecting anything, but this is where I can use the navigation pane. Because now if I right-click, and this is only on the PC, you can't do this on the Mac, and select heading and content, that's what I get. Now what I can do with this, if I want, because by selecting this heading 1 range, it's also selected all of Small Business Grant Tips as well, which is a heading 2. And it's selected all the way down. I turn on the Show Hide Characters, including the Pilcrow, preceding the next heading 1. And that's the way it works. And now look what happens. If I want to drag, if I realize Introduction's in the wrong place, if I want to drag it down to the bottom, let's say to the end of the document after Sample Business Plan, I click, drag and hold, and then I drag and drop and release. And look what's happened. It's now moved everything to the end of the document. It's still kept that section selected. So if I press Ctrl Z, undo, and I'll put it back where it was. Similarly, if I come down to the next heading 1, like important facts about grant and funding, and I do the same again, it selects that part of the document. But then, of course, it stops on the next heading 1, because that's the range it's looking at. If I select Keep Your Audience in Your Head, I can see it's a heading 2. The next heading 2 is Strategy is Important here. So if I just select that range, that's all it's going to select, because that's the way ranges work. If I make Strategy Important a heading 3, like so, and then come back up to Keep Your Audience in Your Head and select Heading and Content, it'll select past that now, because the heading 3 is hierarchical, or it's below the hierarchical level of heading 2. Similarly, we think in a competitive way. If I demote that, and then I also demote that. Now I can right-click and demote here, but all I'm doing is I'm making heading 2 heading 3, because the hierarchy goes 1, 2 through to 9. So I can demote here, or I can just apply the heading 3 style. Now if I come back up here and select the range, again, select heading and content, it selects all the way down to the next heading, either heading 2 or in this case, because a heading 1 is above it, it selects that range. And now, of course, if I wanted to go to business plan and select that one down, so I'm now going to include the heading 2s, the heading 3s, And basically that's what we can do. And that gives us a lot of power with our document because, of course, I can drag that up to the top now. And then it will move every single selected item. And it's up there now, and it's all sitting there nice and tidy. If I come up to my table of contents, right click, update, then the table of contents is going to reformat like that. If I turn off show hide characters, you get a better view. You can see that the structure is all pretty nice and tidy. Now, if I just toggle the field code and I change hierarchical level, I say 1 to 2, I'm going to change it to 1 to 3 to include heading level 3 in here. Now you can see that's what we're getting in our table of contents. And that's the beauty of it. Now, if I want to put that back, then all I need to do is drag and drop, put it back like that. And again, that's what we're doing here. And we're using word styles to, one, is to structure our document. Secondly, it provides us with this outline level. But thirdly, when we're talking about moving things in Word, we don't talk about moving pages. We're talking about moving sections of our document. And the easiest way to do that, and the most surefire way of getting it right 100% every single time, is to use styles. And that's another reason why they're so important in Word. Okay? Thanks a lot.